Hello, I'm Christina, and I'm here with Martina, and we're your podcast host for Everyday Ordinary, Extraordinary Women. We're inspired to create this podcast after pondering this question: what would a world look like where we can be inspired by every person? Usually, we are quick to compare and judge ourselves and others, and when we do that, everybody's losing. Depending on my point of view, I can either feel small because I come out lacking, or arrogant and dismissive because I feel superior. Those are really the only two options, and neither of those options make us feel very good. So here's our thought: someone's everyday normal is someone else's extraordinary. Judgment comes from our first impressions, so we invite you, the listener, to go beyond first impressions and see the magic everywhere. There's inspiration at every corner in everyone if we're willing to look. And so today we have with us Erlinda Vo, and we are so excited to have her here today. She's an energy alchemist and an extraordinary high vibe chick. And Erlinda, we are so happy to have you here. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Christina and Martina. I am so honored to be here on your podcast. First of all, when you meet women and they're part of your soul tribe, you just get that vibe. Have you ever had that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
just so appreciate you and what you're trying to do, because all of us deal with that comparison, whether good or bad, right? And so I feel so honored to be here with both of you. You guys are both powerful women, and I'm so honored and excited to be here. Thank you for letting me have this extraordinary opportunity. So I'm Erlinda Vo, the Energy Alchemist, and I have an online platform called the Spa for Your Soul, where soul care is the new self-care. And so that's kind of how I'll kick it off, really, just about soul care is the new self-care. And do not get me wrong, I am not against self-care, okay? I know a lot of times people are like this or that, right? I really am. Self-care started to become a chore for me. And so I really wanted something that nourished my soul. And that's what I set out to do as the founder of the Spa for Your Soul. But that's a little bit about me. I'm currently residing in Phoenix, Arizona. But I do have a boyfriend who lives in Colorado. So I do get to spend the summers there, and I travel back and forth. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Erlinda, I think I shared that with you, when we met. I think it's about 7 years ago now. We were in this course together, and I saw you, and I was so in awe by who you were, and it was so beautiful, and we've kept in touch, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I always so appreciate hanging out with you. It's just so beautiful. It's such an honor to know you and be around you, right? It's like, I don't know, it just reminds me of fairies. I don't know why. So could you answer this sentence for me? If we really knew you, what would we know?
I'm very mission driven. And I share this story sometimes, but I, in sixth grade, had created a club, and my club was called the BY Club. And it was about be yourself. And so in sixth grade, I was, working on my leadership and whatnot. Although I didn't know that at the time, we just had puffy paint and t-shirts and things like that. But you would really know that I'm really, really committed to vibing up the planet, and I'm just mission driven. Yeah, that's kind of my sole purpose here, is to vibe up the planet and really do that for myself and others, even if it's just one person at a time or many at a time. And really, that's what you would know about me when you got to know me, is that I just will keep getting up to bat for that mission. Yeah.
It's so beautiful, and it's so much so needed, right? It's I think it's in human nature that we have a tendency to look for the dark and for the heavy and for the it's survival, right? It's instinct, so it's survival. And so choosing to look for the other or choosing to create or stand for the other, for the high vibration, for the joy, for the laughter is, as I like to call it, the victory of human spirit over and over.
Love
So
that.
beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
So, Erlinda, share a funny or silly or embarrassing story with us today.
Okay. This is the one question I did contemplate a little bit, I have to be honest. I was like, what am I going to share? It turns out into like a pretty cool thing. 3 years ago, I was with my boyfriend who has 2 teenager kids. And his daughter and I, both Virgos, were prepared for Halloween and to go to Disney World, right? We had our costumes months in advance, and my boyfriend and his son did not. So they were scrambling around like before we were about to leave. And I looked at my boyfriend and I said, why don't you wear just like a ugly Christmas sweater? I think that would be really funny. And he turns to me, he's like, Ron Holiday. And I was like, wait, who's Ron Holiday? I was like, I don't know this. Is it a story? Is it like a thing? You know, who's Ron Holiday? I don't know this guy, right? And his daughter and him are laughing and laughing. And I'm like, I don't understand. Is it like an old series? Because they're teenagers. They have so many things that they know that I don't know. I didn't, I don't have kids myself. And they looked at me, they were just laughing. They're like, no, wrong holiday. And I want you to know what came out of that, like funny. It was kind of, I was like, oh, okay. We decided to create this thing called Ron Holiday. And it's an opportunity because I don't live with them, right? So there's some holidays that I miss. So what we do is we have a Ron Holiday about once a quarter, and we do a mashup of holidays. Okay. So like, I think one of my favorite ones is we did Chinese New Year. I forgot when you paint the faces. Oh, Dia de la Muertas, right? And we did, I don't know, something else. It was like wild. Like, I think it was like Valentine's Day, and we mashed it up, and Cinco de Mayo it was, right? And I got this huge, funny piñata and filled it with Chinese fortune crackers. What are those things called? And the kids loved it, but it was a way to take something that was kind of embarrassing. I was like, oh, oops, and turn it into something in which it's kind of one of our traditions. And it means a lot to the kids because we get to do a mashup. It doesn't, we don't just have to see family on Thanksgiving. Like I think we had a Thanksgiving in July last year, or, it's just fun to do these mashups. So that was my funny. And then it turned into a really great opportunity for us to have our own little adventure. So
I love that. I think that might be my favorite funny, silly share so far because, wow, what a way to turn it and flip it into a really cool new tradition.
yes, thank you.
Love it.
And you get to celebrate whenever you want and whatever you want.
It's the best. Last year we did a Christmas in July, and his son hung a smaller Christmas tree upside down. It was just like we had put like 4th of July flags. It was just wild, and it's just we get to be creative and out of the box, and that's important for I think the kids to know that you don't have to just do something or celebrate when something says you have to. So yeah, thanks.
And that's one of the biggest lessons, right? That you don't have to do something just because. So what a great lesson, for everyone, even for us, right? Because we often still stay in that place where, well, it's the way it's supposed to be done. I'm like, maybe not.
And when I invited my family for Thanksgiving in July, they were like, wait, what? They were so, it's funny how it's just, no, Thanksgiving is in November. And I'm like, no, it's an opportunity to appreciate and acknowledge. And it's just noticing how much we do get stuck in that kind of like, this is when it's supposed to happen. And when randomly, I had a turkey, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's celebrate Thanksgiving. And we went around acknowledging randomly, but it's fun. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, Erlinda, just tell us about the time you took a chance for love, and maybe not necessarily romantic love, And whatever that means for you, right? It might be standing up for yourself, or it might be, you know, whatever it is for you.
I would say two things. One was self-love, and that was when I had the courage to leave my ex-husband. And I mean, that wasn't on my radar, just so you know. I'd rather talk about my epic love story that I would love to share, and I'll do a little snippet of it. But as you asked the question, what I got present to was that took a lot of courage. Um, and that was taking a chance on myself and self-love, never managing my own finances before, never really being on my own. I think I've lived alone for about 6 months, my whole life, maybe 7 months, always with roommates, right? And to leave my ex-husband, I think we were together for 11 years. And that was one thing, and taking a chance on love. Like when you asked like the question, I heard it differently. So that's the one part I would say was having that courage to leave that marriage and taking a chance on myself. And like, that was epic self-love. That's the first thing. And then of course I have to share about my epic love story, and I could get really into it, but I'll succinct it very short. Imagine calling a 1-800 number as I was going through that divorce, and getting a free financial planner through my work. And Teague answers on the other line. And for 4 years on the phone, he is coaching me over and over again on my finances. And what's so epic about it is, when I was going through my divorce, he was helping me reestablish my finances, Teague was. And we had only talked on the phone, 4 years. He had ended up going through his divorce. We had went through mine, right? And we were just friends, and he was my financial planner, right? And one day, when the pandemic hit in 2020, was the first time we Zoomed together, because everybody started Zooming, right? So we had always talked on the phone. And the first time we saw each other, we just knew we'd be friends. Like we've already been friends for 4 years, but just acquaintances, right? And yeah, so shortly after that, we started talking, and we've been in a relationship for 3 years. And yeah, it was kind of epic. So when people are like, how'd you meet your boyfriend? I'm like, I called the 1-800 number, and he answered, and that's how it happened. So yeah, so when we finally met on Zoom, we decided to meet in person, and we've been together for 3 years now. But it was definitely amazing to be able to, like, what are the chances? I mean, really, what are the chances, right? And it was awesome because we both were ready at that time. We had already started knowing each other, but it wasn't anything like that until it was. And it's just been really magical. And it's a lot of a love story and very epic. But for this, I'll say that you just never know where your path is guiding you, where the universe and the divine is guiding you. And when you follow that call and you listen, and when you're not looking, it just really might show up as somebody phenomenal. So, yeah.
Such a magical, brilliant story. And and life is just that easy, right? Like you just surrender and and choose to live life to the best. And that was part of it, right? It was like you choosing to manage your finances, right? Like, I'm gonna manage this piece and be responsible. And what bloomed out of that is just so cool. Got goosebumps.
It was
Uh,
it was amazing. And the one thing I would say is the first thing he said to me when I called that 1-800 number was, "Are you okay?" It wasn't like, "Oh, let's talk about your finances," and make wrong that I hadn't managed it in 11 years. Like it was, "Are you okay? Are you safe?" And in that moment, like I felt like it's okay. Like even though I'm really behind and messed up right now, like I'm okay, you know, and to have another human whose job it is to just work on finances. I mean, he didn't have to stop and ask me if I was okay and safe, but he did. And he took the time to really work with me and never made me wrong and just said, hey, we all start somewhere. So
beautiful.
yeah.
So Erlinda, share your superpower with us.
Hmm. Hmm. I would say it's funny. I had 3 pop up. I was like, yes, you know, like I would, you know, you could say your average, like your intuition. And then I was like, oh, it'd be fun to say like red lipstick. Yeah. You know, bright red lipsticks or things like that. Right. But then when it came down to it, I think this one might not be as sexy, but it's very profound, which is my listening.
Can you say more about that?
My listening for greatness, my listening for beauty, my listening for, you know, what's missing that if it was there would make a difference. My listening for, you know, who does someone need to be when they can't listen that for themselves, I can listen that for them. Yeah.
Mm. How powerful.
Yeah.
You know,
Thanks.
it feels almost like seeing them for their potential, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think it is like seeing them for their potential, right? Um, but it's more so like, oh, wow, that's not it. Like that action is not it. But instead of like seeing where it could be, it's okay, what am I now listening for? Right. So that they be that new person. Right. So it's this like I can hold the vision, right? And I think that's what a lot of people do is they hold this vision of something. But it's different when you're on the court and they do something you don't want them to do, or they leave those socks on the floor, whatever it is. It's a different story when you're on the court. Can you bring that vision here now in the present moment and cause that now? So I would add that.
Yeah, really cool. I think sometimes it's hard too when you're in the midst of it, right? Because you're like, oh, I see your greatness and I want to hold that space for you, but you're not being that right now, right? But to truly hold space for them, however they're being right now, and still know that they're great, no matter how they're being in the moment, is a real different ability and space to hold, and that's a true gift, right? To not get caught up in what they're doing in the moment and really know who they truly are. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but once
And
again,
that,
superpower.
yeah. And it also starts with yourself. Listening for yourself in that moment when, you know, it might not be that great. And that's the blessing that we get to practice on ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And not take it personally too, right? Because that judgment and all of that. Because when we're stuck there, then it's easy to get caught up in it. But when you're not judging, when you can be at peace, then you have that space to to hold the space for those other people. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, well, what I was gonna say is like the still loving and appreciating them, even though they don't do what you want them to do, or yourself, right? The gentleness and compassion to bring that to that person, even though it's not, I'm gonna say reality, whatever reality is, right?
Well, that's interesting you say that because I think many years ago, when I was dealing as a manager, I was dealing with somebody and I'm like, this makes no sense. Like, why would they, you know, I was like having one of those moments. This might have been, I don't know, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, probably. And someone said to me, but to them, it makes perfect sense. In their world and they're looking and they're occurring, right? The way they're looking, it makes perfect sense. So sometimes when I'm like wait, what? In their world. And that's what I try to pause and like, okay, let me listen for how is it showing up for them that this makes sense in their world. And so I think that's given me a lot of patience and practice to be able to be like, okay, even though I think this is insane and does not make sense to me at all, this is crazy, to pause and be like, okay, but what's going on over there that is actually having the world show up this way, that they would respond this way. So yeah.
And that's an awesome point, because I believe that people have a reason for doing what they're doing, right? It might not be my reason. It might
Yes.
not be my way how I want it to play out, but they do have a reason for doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I like to make funny ones, like when you're driving and somebody cuts you off, and I'll be like, oh yeah, they must have had to really go to the bathroom. I think, like I make funny ones, like I think that's the reason the world, they had to cut me off right there. It's an emergency, or, they had bad gas or something. Like I try to make it funny so that it's not so like, I'm not so like, right. It's like, okay, got it. Wow. What's going on over there? I wonder. Right. So, yeah.
Because, yeah, and if you make light, that's ultimately what lightens up, right? We can easily go to that place of what an asshole and go find all the negative reasons why they cut us off, but we have no clue, right? We're not sitting in that car, in that body, right? We just make up shit, as I like to say. We just make up shit all the time.
Yep. So might as well make something up that empowers.
Yeah. Or that makes you laugh or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Linda, what's your biggest lesson? So it's a few questions, and you pick, and maybe it's all the same or not. But what is your biggest lesson, or what made you who you are today, or what took most courage? I mean, I know you talked about leaving your husband. What popped in my mind was when we went bobsled driving. That was like, oh my goodness. When did you stand up for something that mattered to you? Just one of those, or maybe it's all the same.
Yeah. I think I'll go into the story just a little bit, which is when I was younger, I don't know if you actually know this, Martina. I was like, I'm gonna meet my husband on this day. And when you first start out in some transformational classes, you think you're like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. And I declared to my girlfriend, I said, no, we gotta go out. I'm gonna meet my husband tonight. Like we gotta go. I just know it. And I did. I met my husband that night. Okay. And I was like, yes, I'm a master manifester. I can do anything. And, all of these things. And so years later, obviously, as I mentioned, I got a divorce. I want to talk a little bit about what led up to that divorce and why I'm so passionate about essential oils. I don't think we mentioned that on this call, but that is one of my modalities, is using essential oils to alchemize people's energy and transform it to higher vibrations. And I, yeah, sorry, I'm just getting present to all that it was. But I had an oil session with a mentor of mine, and she put all these oils on me. And there was this moment in which I felt connected to God. I felt reconnected in a sense that I hadn't felt in those 11 years. And when I look at the trajectory, my light started diminishing more and more and more over those 11 years. And I had this essential oil session. She put about 20 oils on me, and I felt like my crown chakra opened, and I was connected to source, like plugged in, right? And I got home that night, and my husband at the time was like, he all of a sudden couldn't be in the same room as me. And he was like, I'm gonna go sleep upstairs. And I was like, okay, okay, that's weird. And the very next day I went to a girlfriend's house, and I said to her, you know what, he better vibe up or vibe out, because I am not vibing down for anybody anymore. I'm not vibing down for anyone anymore. And that was almost like I didn't say it that powerfully at the time. I was just like, I don't know, he better vibe up or vibe out. I'm just not vibing down anymore, right? And I kind of was half kidding. I mean, I wasn't really expecting like within 3 weeks to be separated from my husband. That clarity, that awakening, that connection to source really cleared the path around me. And within those 3 weeks, he really couldn't be in the same room as me anymore. It really was a vibrational mismatch. And that was one of the most profound kind of declarations, even though I was half kidding because I was not about to uproot my life. I mean, we had the BMW, the car, the dog, the 3-bedroom house, like we had it all out here, right? I wasn't planning on uprooting my life. We'll just say that. And in that moment when I was like, yeah, he better vibe up or vibe out because I'm not vibing down anymore. And in that moment, it was taking a stand for kind of myself, what I believed in. It didn't seem that way at the time, right? It didn't seem that way at the time. It was definitely an uprooting. And 3 months after we separated, I had another awakening in which I realized he had some narcissistic tendencies and gaslighting experience. I never heard of that term. And when I had that awakening this time, I started stuttering. I was in a full-blown stutter. This never happened to me before. It was such a shock to awaken from a delusion, right? The house, the car, we have it all. To awaken to that's not everything that was going on and that I had lived in a delusion. So that was one of the most profound kind of transitions in my life, was jokingly, oh, he better vibe up or vibe out, right? Jokingly to, 6 months later, having this profound awakening where I now stuttered. It was such a psychological trauma that my body couldn't process all that had happened, and it started stuttering. And then I've just been on a journey of recovery ever since. And after that experience, what I realized was I was not a master manifester. I was really good at giving my word and keeping that word, and that did not equal a master manifester. And what I realized, if your soul is not aligned with the divine or whoever it is for you, or the universe, or if your soul isn't aligned with your higher self, then there's this missed opportunity to kind of dance and co-create with the universe. And that's what was missing when I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna meet him tonight. And like, there was a lot of red flags that I didn't see because I was so focused on being a master manifester. And so now I really pride in pausing and working on my alignment, my soul alignment first. And I do truly believe that's why I was able to meet Teague. It was a soul alignment that, when we met, neither one of us was ready at that time, but 4 years later, our souls were in alignment. So that's what I want to share. It's probably tidbits of the question you asked, but that's what came to mind. So thanks for letting me share.
And
Yeah. Go ahead,
it's
Marty.
so extremely powerful, right? Because so there's a few things I hear in there. I'm just going to point to one and maybe two more, but only out to one. And that is that ultimately it's about taking care of you, right? And we have, you were mentioning that a little bit, like self-care is this big hype work. And we believe that, slapping on some lipstick or getting our nails done is it. But self-care is so much more than that. It is working on filling ourselves up. It is, and once you do that, it's almost like you're aligned, right? That's what you were talking about. And as you're more and more aligned, it's more good things will happen, more good things will come. Because of course, what else? Like, the universe always has your back, right? Life happens for you, not to you, right? So it's beautiful. I just wanted to point that out, right? That we look outside for everything, but ultimately when we can just turn around and find safety inside and beauty inside and all of that, that's when we start living in a way, right?
Yeah. It's like a restoration to soul, soul purpose, higher purpose. It's like being restored to the calling of the heart, you know?
Yeah. And it's a whole journey, right? Like you, who knows, but maybe you wouldn't have got here quicker if you didn't have those life experience and that husband who got you to this point. But the point is, you're awakened now, right? You know that you're responsible for who you surround yourself with. Whereas I think early in our life, we kind of we bend ourselves to be with the people in our lives, right? And then when you finally realize, oh, wait, I can love myself and I can choose to be myself with everyone I'm with, like that's a very different, but you have to really be grounded in yourself to be that vulnerable, to put yourself out there with all the people in your world. And if you don't have the right people around you, it's hard to do that, right? And so it takes a while to get to that point in our lives where we can own all of that. And
Yeah.
so
And make no mistake, I do not regret that marriage. I actually accredit my intuition and my listening, the very elevation of those two skills for me, those two kind of things because of him. I didn't realize that I was giving up myself in honor of his word and his whatever was going on, but that trained me very well. So when the divine comes knocking or I get a download, I might push back a little bit like a teenager, like, oh, do I have to get up at 2 in the morning right now? I might have that, but almost, I would say 90%, 95% of the time when I get that intuition, that download, I am taking the action. And I accredit that to that training. I just was listening and taking actions based on what he wanted, what restaurant he wanted to go, or what all that was. But, it took me a long time to get to that, Christina. I was a victim at first, probably for the first year. I was a victim and I was a victim. And I remember talking to every single Uber driver and sharing my story. And I remember somebody saying, "You're not a victim, be responsible." And I'm like, no, I am a responsible person and I will be responsible. I need this time to be however I am. Right. And, but I do, I want to make sure your listeners know the extraordinary part is not having regret about it. It's about, oh my gosh, that actually developed me into a person who I had really great intuition before, but it is skyrocketed after that. Now I get those little intuitions. I did one time and the divine did shake me up about it. But I really do listen to the divine. And when the calling, is there or the knock, I do take action. And that was the training. The divine took that was so devastating in my world and distraught and tore me all the way down and turned it into a blessing. So I want to also make sure that your guest knows that, because that is the everyday extraordinary right there, is to be able to, instead of having so much hate, I did for a while, but instead of having that hate, it was really now an opportunity. Like, wow, I'm very good at listening and then taking the action. So yeah, thanks. And thanks for saying that.
that's really
And
beautiful.
and it is, right? It's like Debbie Ford in her book Spiritual Divorce, she wrote, like it was about her going through a divorce, and at the end she talks about what were the wedding gifts, right? Who did you become? What did you learn? And that's beautiful that you're sharing that, because it's ultimately that's all we can take away, right?
Yeah.
That's our access to our power, to our growth, to our beauty. And rather than blaming and being upset, it's just like, wow, okay, who did I become?
Yes. Yes.
So Erlinda, what fills you up? What fills your batteries? You have a gift that you're sharing all the time, right? You're giving a lot of yourself. So what do you do to take care of yourself so that you have it to give? And
Yeah. Having a strong meditation practice, whether it's in silence and or listening to ones. There's that. I've really taken a liking to grounding on the earth. That's been my favorite, one of my favorites. I also love roses and flowers. That's something that just totally helps me nurture. It just changes the frequency. And then I've been stepping a little bit into some biohacking, like cold plunging and saunas, and really trying that. It's amazing that in a sauna, you can really actually just meditate. And so it's like a really great thing. It's like releasing toxins and meditating. So those are some of the things, but I have a little thing that I've been doing for many years, which is called OTG, and it's off the grid. And it's those times in which I'm like, I let the people I know who are expecting something from me or I talk to daily know I'm going OTG. I've scheduled it. That means you might text me. I may or may not respond. I have no obligation to respond to emails, to phones. I like kind of get off the grid, and that can be various different things. It could be taking myself on a date. It could, most of the time recently, it's been like, oh, I'm just laying in bed. I'm not doing anything, right? But this release of obligations to other people, that's one of my favorites. And then floating. So if you've never tried floating, or if you are an empath or somebody like that, floating is so profound. It's the one place that I feel like I'm not getting all the stimulation coming at me, all these people like nagging at my energy that I can feel. It's the one place that I feel I can completely relax. So those are two of my favorites: off the grid, OTG, and floating, I would say.
So I love this OTG idea, but I also love the piece of how you let the people know that you're declaring this is OTG time. Because as a massage therapist, my phone is off a lot, and I got people get really mad at me that my phone is off a lot. And I could be a little more responsible about this is when I'm not available. So that's a really great piece. I
Yeah,
like that share.
they actually respect it, and like, oh, when is your next OTG? Like, I'm like, oh wait, I have a schedule, or it's like next month. Wait, what? Like they respect it, and I think that they appreciate it, because before I would just go OTG and you just never hear from me. Like it might be like, right. And so now it's a little different. I'm working on causing that with them too, which has changed my life, and he's like, I know you're OTG, but I may still text you. And I'm like, and I may or may not respond. No obligation here, right? So it's nice to be able to let that go, because then all that stuff, like all those people depending on you to show up, they're okay. They're like, oh, just off the grid. So
Love it.
I love that there is not, like, that's not rigid, right? I might or might not reply. I might, or might, like that you take the freedom to do whatever you please with that time, right? That there's not like, okay, I cannot respond right now. It's like, yeah, or I might not. It's beautiful. It's, that in itself is just feels soft and sweet and gentle. So thank you for that. That was a great, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try that one. So Erlinda, who or what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, if you could do anything or be anything, if there's no limitations of any kind, what would you do, or who would you be, and why?
Hmm. I feel like I'm contemplating this. It's funny how the questions, as you ask them, have a different ring than when you read them, right? Obviously, in conversation, things arise differently. And first thing was, I definitely want to be a successful businesswoman. That is kind of like this. And then I realized that really all of that is to make up for something, not being good enough, not having enough money, or whatever it is. Like that's kind of always been a vision of mine, right? And And so, and then I was like, okay, well, who would I be? And I went down that track. Like, I would be powerful. And I was like, wait, the truth is I am powerful now. It's not like a would be powerful someday, right? Like I would be powerful today. And I think how I want to answer this question is a move. But what this shows is the listening that you guys are. So thank you. I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised by the unfolding of the journey. I want to be surprised by the divine, whose plan is way better than mine. I mean, I was like, I'm husband, and, and that's what I got. And now it's like being surprised. I think most of my life is creating possibilities or being something that's like active and like I have to do something. But what if I just existed and was surprised and delighted by the universe? I guess that's what I would say. Most everything that was coming to mind was a fix for something, or that I'm not that, or I wish I was, and surprised and delighted with life, my life, humanity. Yeah. So thank you.
How delicious, right? Like to just wake up every day and be like, ooh, what am I gonna be given today? Like what? Yeah, just a lovely way to go through the world. Um and then people will start showing up and surprising you, right? Because you're just open for it. And yeah.
I wasn't planning on getting a little bit emotional, and I'm very surprised by the listening that you guys are. Besides the beauty, which I already acknowledged earlier today before, but really there's a listening that you guys are creating here. And in that listening, I got to create something I've never created. I don't know what it's like to be surprised and delighted. And that is profound. And, part of my superpower is listening. And I appreciate you guys listening for me.
Aw,
Yeah.
right back at you. So here's a two-parter. Either what was your biggest lesson that you've learned in life so far, or what made you who you are today?
Mhm. Hmm. I think what made me who I am today are the angels that you meet along the way. One of them being Martina on this call. And it's funny because I haven't talked to my mom about you in a while, but a while ago, Martina, I'd be like, she's the angel that lives in New York. Remember I told you about her? And there's been some key points in my life in which an angel has showed up and kind of taking me from where I'm at into a different realm, and I think it's those moments that have crafted me into who I am. It's like when I didn't have the strength to carry on, it's like those angels and those moments, Martina included, that let me ride on their wings with them until I can repair mine. I'm getting emotional. Yeah, they're supposed to make me cry. Like until I can repair mine, or yeah, I don't know. I'm getting a little I'm okay with getting emotional, so I don't even know why it's this, but just yeah, allowing when just meeting the angels in the right moments, and you know them sharing their superpower, their beauty, their magic, their wingspan, so I can carry further until mine were repaired. So, yeah, thanks. They talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? And it might be gliding with the angel wings. And, until your angel wings are repaired or, able to fly on their own again. So I would say that's it right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
And what a level of trust it takes in you to trust them to have your back and to guide you where you need to go. And so it's them, but it's you also letting them in to be supported by them. So it's still it's always a synergy, right? Um and
And I would
it's a give and
say,
take, right? We give it back. Martina's there for you, and then you're there for her. Martina's there for we bring our sisters up with us, and
well, and I would also say, just to tie in for you guys, is that they're also everyday extraordinary people. It wasn't like some celebrity or some kind of big organization, or like it was seemingly ordinary human beings who were extraordinary. Yeah.
and it's usually just ordinary gestures too, right? It's not like this huge thing that they did for you. It was a phone call or just being there and listening when you needed to cry, or right, like we think it needs to look like this big thing we do to be extraordinary, and it's not. Like that's what we want to celebrate here. It's these things we do every day that create miracles in this world.
Yeah. It might have been ordinary in someone's world, but it was definitely extraordinary in mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for acknowledging and appreciating that. It's we do life the way we do life, right? It just is, right? It's like I can give you plenty of examples, right? It's like with my son Nico, everybody's like, "Oh wow, look at what you do." I'm like, "We're just doing what needs to be done." To you, it might seem extraordinary. We're just doing what needs to be done.
Yes.
And so in a way, who am I to take away what you see, right? And who am I to put down what you see, right? By just swatting in the way, which I'm very good at, right? So, Erlinda, what do you want people to remember about you?
Hmm. It's not so much what I want them to remember about me. It's really about, I guess I would say, where can you be surprised and delighted today? And that's what I would leave everybody with. Yes, you can go visit me at thespaforyoursoul.com, or you can visit me on social media or things like that. But more importantly, where can you be surprised and delighted in your life today? And that's what I want to leave people with.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. If I could stay present to that, I think my day would go a little differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really would.
Mhm. Yeah. So, Erlinda, what do you want to be remembered for the most? Like, or what are you most proud of?
I have several different brands I'm working on. Excuse me, I'm launching, and some small, some big. Um, but I really want to be remembered for being a change maker, somebody who can impact others. And all my brands, even if I tried to make a widget. I really was like, oh, I'm just gonna make a widget and sell a widget because I want money. It's just not in my mission. And all the brands that I'm working on launching all really, really are about impacting people, elevating them, vibing them up. So really, I want to be known and that I've left humanity better than when I found it, and a change maker, someone who had the mission of vibing up the planet and continue to do that in the face of things that don't look that way. And someone whose ideas make a difference, like soul care is the new self-care, vibe up the planet, right? Vibe up or vibe out, really taking care of your own energy. Someone who could bring and introduce newer narratives into the collective and newer brands that can open hearts and change people, transform them.
I'm inspired. I know I'm going away with some new slogans for today.
Yay!
Vibe up or vibe out. Like, woo.
That's a
Be
very cool
amazed at
one.
how much it works too. I mean, when you come home and your husband at the time can't even be in the same room as you, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Right? It really does make a difference when you take care of your energy. It really does. So yeah.
And take a stand, right? Ultimately, because that was part of it, right? It's like, yes, you took care of your energy, and then you made a declaration, kind of. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
okay, so last question. If you had a magic wand and you could give people any quality, like any quality, what would it be and why?
I don't think I can answer this question.
And you can have
Why?
more than one. So
Yeah, no, I would say nothing. I would give nothing. And I really, really was thinking about it. Because like, I'd be like, oh, get rid of suffering, right? Like, oh, but it's in the suffering that we grow and refine and develop. And do I wish it wasn't so harsh sometimes? Yes. I don't think I have an answer for this. I'm surprised. Usually have an answer and can talk about anything. I don't think about one thing that I think could, transform the world or not. I think we are perfectly designed as we are. I think we have a brain that functions to help us survive. I think we have a heart that helps us, lead into the next levels for ourselves and soul purposes. I think then it would just be maybe letting people be present. I guess as I'm unfolding this answer, is having people be present to the all of this, all that is life. And yeah, like there's no regrets. Like if I can go through what I went through with 10 years or, having my dad divorced my mom when I was younger and like actually so appreciating it because I am who I am because that happened. And knowing the suffering that I went through, on the flip side, there's many moments of happiness. So I guess being present, if I had to say one word or one thing, is giving people the gift of being present in the moment.
And what a difference that would make for most people.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. So do you want to share about your business today and how people can contact you if they would like to?
Okay. So as I mentioned, it's the spaforyoursoul.com. The website's currently a little bit in rework because I also have a beauty brand. Eventually we're sorting it out. Okay. But the Spa for Your Soul is about, soul care, right? Fulfilling your soul. And I love makeup. And that's, I mentioned I was launching some brands later on. This isn't the launch for that. I just needed to house it somewhere, and I put it on there. But the Spa for Your Soul is a huge resource. Okay. I do have a free clearing on there. I have a free meditation. I have my membership program. I have candles and grids, and I make essential oils and things like that. So if there's something that speaks to your soul on how you may want to start your journey of vibing up, or, what is soul care? How do I nurture the soul? It's a great resource there for you to explore and pick and dive into different things. And then you can find me. I do a live every week, which I don't know, Martina, you might not know this either, and Christina, but I do a live every week on my Instagram, and it's on Sundays at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. And I go just for 10 minutes and I do a soul frequency reading. And so I have a deck of cards. Actually, I didn't bring them, but I have a deck of cards that I created. They're soul frequency cards. And it just kind of tells you what I go through the frequency for the week. So it's a general reading. And then I pick some other cards to give us messages about this week. So for example, this week is worry. So the collective energy is about worry. And I give these certain messages like, how do you navigate the week? And that's been really fun. So if you want to track with me, that's usually where I'll announce new branding or new products and things like that. But I'm on Instagram at the Spa for Your Soul. So, yep.
Fantastic. So many new cool tools for everyone to check out.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you so much, Erlinda, for being here. I so appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing from your heart, which is really beautiful. And then to you all out there, thank you for being here, for listening. And if you love this, please leave us a review and or share, right? Always share. And please always remember that you are extraordinary. You rock. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Christina?
Bye for now.